Alrighty guys, you know what today is. We're going to be doing heads and cam on the LS3. Today's episode is going to be teardown, so stripping everything you don't need or the stuff that you need to get out of the way off the car. I've got some new wrapping in, so we're going to store it nice and neat. Normally I'll put down some paper floor mats in the boot and put all the parts in there just to keep everything off the floor and saves you losing stuff. So it'll go on the shelf. We've got some nice new shelves. Don't know if there's any information I need to give you up front. Old mate that's just gone past. He's still ripping it. He came back past a couple of minutes ago, and it looked like he tried to link the corners, the right hander and the left hander. Bloody hoons. Anyways, let's get into it. Now tear down on the top. Tear down, you don't really need to be on the hoist or stands or anything like that. Everything you need to get to is going to be up top. If you've got standard headers still and you're changing them, you will need to put it up at some point. This car has a nice set of the X-Force headers. It's got a 1 7/8 set of X-Force headers. So the car doesn't need to come off the ground to take the exhaust off. All I have to do is just get spark plugs out of the way, remove the leads, unbolt them, and they'll pull away from the block either way. That way I'm able to access the head. This car already has an OTR and a tune in it, but it still retains the map. So I spoke to the customer and asked if he wanted to go to mapless. He did, so we're going to get rid of this loose fitting OTR. We're going to fit a real nice VCM OTR. That comes with all your infill panels, the mapless conversion kit, your conversion wiring, and a GM style intake air temp sensor. Yeah, let's get stuck in. I might do a time lapse, see how that goes. So this is where we're at so far. If that timeline worked, the time lapse worked, and I was able to get it to film properly. I don't really know about the lighting, if I need more light so you guys can see better, but here it is after the strip down. We've removed, not the radiator yet, but we've removed the fans. Intake's off, coils are off, all the belts are off, so we're ready to tear down the front of the engine. We'll take all the ancillaries off, all the stuff like your, on this model, it has electric power steering, so there's no power steering pump you have to take off. When you have the power steering models, like the engine belt-driven hydraulic pumps, you can just unbolt them and lean them forward with your reservoir hanging over here for like the weight to hold it there. And it'll actually stay there and it'll be out your way. You don't really need to unbolt it and like get it completely out of the car unless you're wanting to refill the fluid afterwards. It does make a bit of a mess, and you got to degrease down the alternator and down your body and stuff too. So it is easier just to move it out of the way. Same with alternator. Alternator, you can basically unbolt off your 3-bolted mount, loosen this 15 off at the back, and the alternator will just swing out the way. You don't actually need to fully remove your alternator. AC, You don't have to remove the AC pump at all, which means you don't have to drop your gas. Same with your condenser. When you're pulling the cam out, you can shift the condenser. It's a bit of a shit. If you had 3 hands, it'd be a lot easier, but I'll show you when we get to that point. But yeah, the compressor can stay where it is, and then pretty much the only thing you have to pull off from this side, obviously the pump and everything comes out of the way, but your tensioner for your AC, that has to come off to get a bolt for the timing cover. I think that's about it. We've got manifold off, obviously. There's no real trick to getting these out. What you just need to watch is down the back here, you've got your brake vacuum feed. Sometimes if the oil pressure or the oil sender switch has been replaced, people don't just put it back on like that. They'll, easier way is to sort of do it like that. If you go pulling the manifold out, you're actually stuck on the wiring. If you reef that, you're going to rip the wiring straight out of that connector, and it's going to be a bad day. So watch that if you're changing your sensors. Try not to wrap it around the vacuum line. Just saves you from having a fuck up. Fuck ups are annoying. So yeah, what else? Oh, the I think that's a 3/8 feed line. So your fuel line, obviously LS. I don't know about other models, like in the States, but Aussie LSs are returnless feed for the fuel lines. So to get that stupid connector off, this is a really basic, simple tool. I think it's a Repco one. Yeah, it is. It's a Repco tool. So you've got 5/16 EFI connector and then 3/8. So what this does is you open it up, slips on the line, you slide it into the connection, and then you slide both the connector and this forward, and it'll remove that connector. So there's no partner on this, so I can't tell you which ones to get. But yeah, they also come in little plastic ones that are like they're like pegged on a little round plastic thing. There's a bunch of sizes and stuff. So if you're doing these often, I would get the plastic ones. If it's just a one-off, this one will do what you need it to do. So, and they're cheap. They're like $10. You'll probably find the cheaper knockoff version in those little $5-10 bin things at Repco. So yeah, all right, putting the new toolbox to work for you guys. From here, what I'm going to do is I am going to put it on the hoist for this part, because it's just easier for me. If you guys don't have a hoist, you can do this part without it. You just got to watch where you drop the coolant. So I have popped the top radiator hose and stuff off to get the fans out, but that drops only a small amount depending on like the angle of the car. So if you're excuse me, if you're working on a driveway with the nose up, it'll likely leak less due to all the coolant going backwards and the main air pocket being right at the top. If you're working a little bit downhill, it's going to piss out everywhere. So yeah, good to know. I'll put it up on the hoist now. I'll get the radiator out and we'll start stripping down the front ancillaries. Alright, so coolant's draining from the bottom radiator hose. I don't know if the clip was too quick in the time lapse, but don't taste, don't drink, don't eat the coolant. I think there's a pretty good meme for that too. If I can find it, I'll put it here. But yeah, So I can give you some bit of knowledge on coolant. Coolant contains a material called ethylene glycol. That affects your nervous system. So if you're breathing in coolant fumes, or if you manage to ingest coolant somehow, it really affects your nervous system, and it can cause, if you ingest enough, or even over a long period of time, it can cause your nervous system to shut down. Obviously, you stop breathing, your heart stops operating, and you die. So coolant is some nasty shit. Don't think otherwise. So I'm at that point where I'm getting ready to undo the last bolts holding the water pump to the block. I just wanted to show you guys these pain in the asses. So these clips here, when I take the water pump off, I leave these connectors down here. I like to disconnect these, but these can be notoriously tight and stuck. So I'll just show you, there's really no trick to getting them out. You just got to wiggle and pull, and they do come out. They're in there sealed with an O-ring. So when the O-ring goes dry, it just grabs it, makes it a pain in the ass to get off. Oh, come on. I'm gonna stab myself with a screwdriver. It. Alright, so they're both clipped or unclipped. So what I try and do is try and grab where the clamps are. If you grab them back here at the hose, you're probably gonna either snap something or rip the hose. So try and grab them close together, push off your own hand and wiggle. Oh, these ones are especially stuck. So keep going. It's coming. There we go. So you got your male end, female end. Inside the female end there's a bloody O-ring. When I put these back together, I use rubber grease, and on the video when we do the reinstall, I'll show you how simple, once this section is greased, how simple it clips in and then removes. So it's always recommended. So when these get all old, and the same way all plastics do, VT to VZ heater taps. If you guys got a VT to VZ and you've changed your heater tap, you know this plastic shit goes brittle and it snaps off. So if this car down the line, say when it's got over 200,000 Ks, currently it's got 54, so it's just fairly new. When she is getting on in age and these start to get brittle, if anyone has to change these hoses, say it's got a rub through leak or something, they've got a lot of protection here for rubbing, but it'll still rub on stuff. So if it's getting on in age and you for whatever reason have to change these lines, if you break, also the opposite. So there's a male one on here, but there's also a male one on this side, so you can't actually get the feed and the return backwards. So getting on to my point, once it's old, if you have to pull these out and you snap it into the other one snaps off for some reason, then you got to do both lines. It's just a pain in the ass. So while you've got it apart, a little bit of lube. Rubber grease is probably your best option. Don't just use any sort of lube. Rubber grease seems to be pretty good for O-rings and seals and stuff. So lube it, put it back in, and I'll show you how easy they slip out afterwards. So I'll fight this one now, see if I can get this one out. Oh, that one was a lot easier. All right. Yeah, you guys get the basic idea. I'll get to stripping down the water pump, then we'll strip down the, I think we'll do rocker covers off next. I'll try and move the wiring out the way a little bit. We'll pull the rockers, pull the push rods, undo the headers, but before we undo the headers, I'll pull the spark plugs out. What you don't want to do is undo all the header bolts, the header drops, and you'll end up snapping one or more of your spark plugs. So the header actually drops down and hits the spark plug. So pull your plugs first, then undo your headers. Just going to cut the time lapse there just to show you this. I should have said first off, before you started tearing it down, to disconnect the battery. In the earlier ones, obviously the battery's over this side in like VT to Z Commodores and even the earlier ones as well. The main concern is in, I think it's late, could be late VE, but definitely VF series 1 and 2, the dipstick tube, not just the dipstick itself, but the dipstick tube zigzags down the back past the engine mount and the starter motor. The issue with that is if you go reefing this up, it'll come out the sump, flick, and it'll ground the starter motor's main power, which comes from, actually it's on that side. So your main power line basically grounds to the engine. And that's no good. You'll either pop a fuse or you can even start a fire if you've like spilt fuel. So it's a good idea to disconnect the battery. I've just done that now. The dipsticks are really funky in late VE and VFs. They're a bit of a pain in the ass. You can't remove the dipstick unless your header's loose. Same with, you can't install the dipstick unless your headers are loose. So you need to be able to shuffle the header in order to zigzag it around and slip it down into the port for the sump. So I'm going to undo the header now, see if I can wiggle that out, and then I think from there we're going to work on pulling the heads off. Geez, that head put up a fight. So the head bolts were all real nasty and stuck in the threads. So it's probably one of the more annoying ones I've done. Let's get the head gasket out of the way. So genuine gasket. Most likely it's never been apart before. I very highly doubt it's been apart with 50 something thousand Ks, 54 I think it is. So down in those bolt holes is where you have to run the thread chaser. It'll clean up those threads. You run it down with a bit of oil. I'd recommend first with some compressed air blowing out those holes, get all the coolant out of it. You do, along the bottom ones here, you do drop a bit of coolant in there when you're unbolting the head. As you untorque the head and it lifts, all the water that's above this level, so you'll have some sitting just at the top of the head, all the water above that level will run into the hole, as well as down and out. So just be mindful of that. Oh, look at that. I haven't undone that yet. You guys have seen That one's tight, that one's loose. There you go. She was primed for failure. Holden haven't done that up properly yet. Not yet, but they didn't do it up properly at all. That's a bit sketchy. No wonder the lifters are prone to failure. Bloody hell. Alright, so I'm going to do the other one off camera because it's really hard to work around the cam to try and get you guys a good picture. So I'm going to put the GoPro down now, rip the other head off, and then I'll give you a rundown of just what the head looks like off the car. Okay, blokes. Oh shit, there's a fucking GoPro upside down. Yeah, that'll do. So, both heads are off. We've got LS3 with the 821 heads, yeah. So we've got 821 heads. They use a offset rocker design. I think it's still a 1.7 ratio. Yeah, I'll just flip it around so you can get in the light. There's our cylinders. Everything looks pretty healthy. Not noticing any cocked or half-cocked valves. So it looks pretty good. There's our ports, the inlet ports. So these are a rectangle port head. From memory, there is two types of rec port heads. You've got lower bolt, which means the intake manifold bolts to the lower side of the port, or you've got center bolt where they're right in the middle. I think the center bolt are an LS3 style head bolt, intake manifold bolt. So that's both of them. We've got a set of mainly dual springs to go in that. That comes with locks, seats, upper retainers, as well as some new valve stem seals. So I'm going to send those off to the machine shop. Hopefully we can get them back quick and get this customer back on the road. Thanks for watching this first installment, guys. You got any comments or suggestions? You just want to tell me I'm a dickhead? You know, internet's a free world too, so let us know down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're not.